Welcome in to another edition of the Business of Sports, Playmakers Beyond the Competition on the Lou Information Station, live and on demand 24/7 at louinfo.com. It is a real pleasure, as always, to be joined by Chris Roseman. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ken. And it's that time of year. Holy cow. It's just a magical time. I think, college sports ramps back up with football leading the way. And, it's a great time. Kids are back on campus. The electricity, the enthusiasm, the emotion, the connection that people have to these college programs, both I think that the state of college football is just off the charts. As they go from 4 teams in the playoff to 12 to whoever knows where they're going next. But it does certainly raise the awareness and raise the excitement for the season.
And speaking of excitement, Mizzou kicked it off in a big way this week. Talk about the atmosphere there. It's pretty exciting what
Yeah,
is being built there.
It really is. I mean, I think that's 13 sellouts in a row. The momentum, it carries on at Mizzou. And, we've been waiting a long time for since the spring sports ended, and now college football kicks off. It's on August 28th on this last week, and it was just a great atmosphere. How about that weather they had? It was I don't know. Kickoff time was like late, or might have been high 70s or low 80s. But by the time it ended up at night, it was just a beautiful fall evening. It felt like football weather, and it's really cool to see because you don't see this at all. You don't see the whole north end zone gone. And the University of Missouri did great jobs to kind of prepare the fans for that north end zone being gone. And we don't have the beautiful video board there, so that does hinder things. But everyone knows it's a temporary inconvenience, and that's the price of growth. And I think the black and gold were alive and well. The parking lots were packed. I think the ingress egress. They had to figure all those things out because you couldn't walk around the north side of the end zone if you were inside the bowl. So I think coming up the next week, this KU game is going to be crazy. It's just going to be nuts.
It is. I don't know that anybody can be fully prepared for what it's going to be. I mean, I was at the game in Arrowhead back in, I think it was 2008. That was unbelievable. 1 and 2. And, but I tell you what, because it's been so long, it's been 14 years since I think 2011. I mean, it is going to be, did people just stay there tailgating the whole time, figuring they'll tailgate for a week and a half?
Yeah, I think they might. What people are talking about, there's going to be more people in the parking lots than in the football game. I mean, there's going to be just the atmosphere around the city of Columbia in the middle of our state is going to be off the charts. In watching that KU Fresno State game, I think KU's got a good team, got a great quarterback coming back. There's and Mizzou looked great on Thursday night with Bo, and I was so unfortunate to hear about what happened to Sam. But hopefully he's okay. And but Coach Drink will have him ready to go, and they got a little over a week to figure out how to prepare for Kansas, and we'll watch. I think Kansas has had a game yesterday, so not quite sure the results, but it's going to be a great time.
It is exciting, and for Tiger fans, I saw some people even had Bring On Kansas. I think somebody had a body painted on, but it's going to be exciting, and we have the pleasure this week of being joined by Ryan Davis, who is managing partner at Bryan Cave here in St. Louis, and really one of the top sports lawyers in the country. And I know everyone's going to enjoy listening to our conversation with Ryan. It is a real pleasure to have Ryan Davis with us. Ryan is the managing partner of Bryan Cave here in St. Louis, and I'm going to embarrass you now by saying you are one of the top sports lawyers in the country. Really impressive. I can't wait to go through all the different facets of the sports world that you touch on. But Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you guys.
Good morning.
Absolutely.
Morning.
Absolutely. I know, Chris, we can start out with you. You worked with Ryan a number of years on the St. Louis Sports Commission, and maybe talk about some of that off the bat.
Yeah, what's always impressed me about Ryan is Ryan knows. I don't know, your class schedule when you were undergrad and you went to and got your law degree must have been wide because you seem to know a lot about a lot of things. Whether it was venue deals or whether it was sponsorship deals or whatever it was, your breadth of knowledge was incredible, and I always enjoyed just watching you work. So just thanks for all your time and efforts back in the day, and as you look at that, when you went, I don't know, where'd you grow up? Tell us a little about your life and, where it all started. Was it here in St. Louis or was it somewhere else?
Yep. Born and raised here in St. Louis. Huge Blues, Cardinals, sports fan, Clayton High School, played soccer, baseball, etc. Went out east for college and law school, went to Duke undergrad and then UVA law school, and then found my way back to St. Louis like so many of us do straight out of law school, and have been with Bryan Cave Leighton Paisner my whole career. Just celebrated my 25th anniversary with the firm.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All with one firm.
All with one firm.
That's unheard of. I mean, that's pretty incredible that you started. It looks like back in 2000, and here we are in 2025 as managing partner, and that's incredible. Did you go into law thinking, I want to go into sports and entertainment or mergers and acquisitions? Was there a certain path that you had your target on?
I honestly didn't know well enough to know that sports was a viable path, and so I came into the law firm as sort of a traditional mergers and acquisitions and corporate attorney, and then had a chance to branch out into sports a few years into my career, and it's been a wonderful path. I've been very fortunate to be able to maintain both an active sports practice and an active corporate and mergers and acquisitions practice, have clients in the sports industry as well as other industries. So it's really been terrific.
And Ryan, what was it like? So obviously big sports fan growing up and played a lot of sports. That first time when you were asked by somebody to work on a sports case, that had to be pretty cool.
It was amazing, actually. I remember it like it was yesterday. I had the chance to work with the St. Louis Blues on their naming rights deal for, at the time, Scottrade Center, and worked very closely with Peter McLaughlin, who was the CEO at the time. And, we were working very hard, long hours, but the whole time I was pinching myself thinking, I can't believe I'm getting to represent the St. Louis Blues. Really a lifelong dream to be able to be associated with organizations like the Blues and Cardinals and others, and has really been fantastic. So, was fortunate to have that opportunity and have been fortunate to represent the Blues ever since, and have been doing some work with the Cardinals for a number of years and a number of other sports teams around the country. So it's been really rewarding and a fun career.
And going from, that was when it was Kiel, right? So we started out as Kiel back in 1994.
Savvis, yeah. Kiel, then Savvis, then Scottrade, then Enterprise.
So, there was one private company in there in between. I forgot about that one. So yeah, Scottrade was there, and Peter came out of the Cardinals, didn't he? Was he with the Cardinals for a while?
He was with Anheuser-Busch for
Anheuser-Busch. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just that life, looking at your all the things you do, whether it's the managing partner is one, but what does your day-to-day look like? Is it managing the staff? Bryan Cave and Bryan Cave, Leighton and Paisner. I gotta say everything now because that's changed in the last couple of years. But so what does your plate look like each and every day? Is it law? Is it managing people? Is it finding new clients? Is it stewarding clients? What does your plate look like each day?
It's a little bit of all of the above, to be honest. I'm very fortunate. I have the opportunity to lead just a fantastic group of people. We, as a firm, we celebrated our 150th anniversary a couple of years ago, and we've been very fortunate. We've had client relationships that span decades, and so in a lot of respects, I get to be a steward of something that is really special and impactful. In the course of celebrating our 150th anniversary, we kind of took the opportunity to think through some of the impacts that we've been able to have in our community, for our clients, for our community, for one another. And, so it has been really rewarding to have the opportunity to lead our St. Louis office, as well as our sports entertainment practice, sports media and entertainment practice. But as far as the day-to-day, there's a good mix of the legal practice, a good mix of leadership, and a good mix of trying to bring in new clients. So it's really fun. I remember, and I won't say who, but I remember calling one of the CEOs of one of the clients that I worked for quite a bit, and telling him, that I'd been named our managing partner, but assuring him it wasn't going to change my availability for him and his company. And he jokingly said, "Well, you're certainly right about that."
So Ryan, take us through. So you had the first opportunity was with naming for the Scottrade, and then take us through kind of how it grew from there. And I know obviously you're involved in a number of different parts of law, but sports I know is a fun part of it, and kind of I guess one thing led to another.
That's right. One thing kind of led to the other. I think I've been very fortunate, and I've been very fortunate to be able to do my career at Bryan Cave Leighton Paisner, where we have such a terrific team. We are now, from having started our sports practice, 15 years ago, give or take, we've now grown into one of only 3 law firms in the world recognized as leaders in sports law in both the U.S. and the U.K. Have over 100 lawyers practicing in our sports practice. We're representing clients, not just across the country, but indeed around the world. And so there have been a lot of people that have made a lot of really significant contributions to growing our sports practice. And it's been a ton of fun. I always tell, our associates in particular, as you think about your career and how to make it meaningful and how to make it impactful, if you find something that you love doing, it doesn't feel as much like work. And I also tell them, you're doing it right if your clients become your friends. And that's something where I've been really fortunate to have had the opportunity to work with a number of clients pretty much throughout my career. And in addition to being people I work with, they've also become dear friends. And so that's something that's been really meaningful for me.
That's awesome.
And on these naming rights deal, and specifically, I wanted to ask about certain ones, but how does that? Where do you jump in the process? You got the sales people that are there. We know the people here in St. Louis at the Blues, for instance, and they bring these deals to you. You seem to jump into these early in the game. So how does that process look for you, and when do you jump in? And as opposed to them just saying, "Okay, Brian, here's the contract, take a look at it." You seem to have a lot of knowledge there that you could bring to the table early in the game.
Yeah, we are often engaged at the very beginning of the process. Usually they will have, not always, but often they will have identified who their partner is. And often, honestly, we're engaged to represent the sponsor side too.
Yeah.
In that case, they'll know what the opportunity is and what the basic deal is. But we'll help them. Sometimes we will help them engage the consulting firm that will find the right partner, et cetera. But often we'll come in at kind of the term sheet stage of, what are the key elements of the transaction? What are the fees for the deal? That sort of stuff. And then obviously we'll get involved in drafting the definitive agreement. Been very lucky to be involved in a number of those deals. Have handled, over a couple $1 billion worth of those deals just locally here in St. Louis. I've done Scottrade Center, Enterprise Center, Peabody Opera House, Stiefel Theater, Centene Community Ice Center, Energizer Park most recently. So have been involved in a lot of the local naming rights deals, but also do them around the country. Just finished up Benchmark International Arena in Tampa, the new home of the Tampa Bay Lightning, was announced a week or so ago. I was involved in that, and have been involved in deals like Citi Field and Acrisure Stadium, and GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium, and so we've been pretty fortunate to be involved in a lot of them.
So Ryan, take us through, again, more kind of in a generic way, what goes through that process? As far as fans know, they just see on the news one day it's going to be called, Energizer Field, so much as if it just happens. And take us through kind of the process of, the winnowing down of maybe 10 candidates down to the one that they want to focus on, and what goes into that decision.
Sure. So I think that there's really a few components that really play a role in who the ultimate naming rights partner is. Obviously, the fees, and who's willing to pay how much. But I think beyond that, there's the brand alignment. And I know, especially locally here, right, that's a big part here, right? We are, as a community, very proud of St. Louis, appropriately so. And so when you think about who the naming rights partners are and have been, it tends to be the companies with long connections to and investments in St. Louis. And so I think that from the company perspective, there's an element of brand awareness, but I think there's also an element of civic contribution and community involvement that comes into it. And from the team's perspective, in addition to the fees, it's having a great partner. And so I think all of that goes into kind of the matching of the team with the naming rights partner.
So let's drill down a little bit and go to the individual. Won't name specific athletes, but how does that? You represent some athletes in various, I don't know. Do you focus on a specific sport? I mean, is it hockey? Is it football? Is it NCAA? Or how does that athlete representation work? And what does that group below you look like, right? So there's a support staff there, let's just take the athlete side. Where does that athlete support structure look for you? Like you find the representation, you do the deals. Is there, you kind of done with it and you kind of let it go from there? How's that work?
Well, so it really varies by client. And one of the other benefits, I know we've been focused on our sports practice here quite a bit, but our practice is within a 1,200 lawyer, one of the biggest law firms in the world, where we truly are full service. We want our clients to know they can come to us and we can help them with anything they need. And we work together very well across our platform, making sure that we are delivering the right expertise to the client for at the right value point. And so, if we are representing an athlete, and again, without naming any names here, but we will often help them with their charitable foundation, their estate planning, their tax work, their investments in other businesses, things like that. We tend not to get involved in their player contracts. We tend to be more involved in representing teams than individual athletes. And also the collective bargaining agreements pretty much fix what the contract looks like. And so as much as I wish Doug Armstrong or John Mozeliak or somebody like that would ask me my advice on which players we ought to be signing, they don't come to me with those kinds of questions. And so we tend to get more involved on the traditional legal side, if you will, and in representing athletes. Sometimes that involves endorsement deals. We were involved in an endorsement deal involving Patrick Mahomes fairly recently. But a lot of times it's the sort of other investments and estate planning and charitable foundation work and stuff like that.
Ryan, really enjoying this. We are going to take a break, but we'll have more with Ryan Davis, one of the top sports lawyers in the country, right after this. You are listening to The Business of Sports, Playmakers Beyond the Competition, on the Lou Information Station, live and on demand 24/7 at louinfo.com. We are back with Ryan Davis, managing partner at Bryan Cave, and really one of the very top sports lawyers in the country, and as we heard earlier, in the world, really. So I'm certainly not the first one to call you that. Obviously, very well renowned. So Ryan, you I know worked a number of years on the St. Louis Sports Commission, obviously very closely with Chris. I know there's probably some good stories you guys have. That obviously the Sports Commission has done such good work over the years in bringing these events to St. Louis, and maybe talk about some of the interesting stories there.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I've been fortunate to be involved with the St. Louis Sports Commission for a number of years. I still serve on their board. I'm vice chair of their board right now, and have had the chance to work closely through the years. In addition to with Chris, with Frank Viverito, Mark Schreiber, the whole team over there is terrific. And what a fantastic organization for our community. I know I'm biased as one of the board members, but I think that the impact that they've been able to have on a community that we all love, and frankly on a community that loves its sports, I think it is really impactful. And Chris and I had the chance to work together in connection with bringing to St. Louis a number of really fantastic events.
Yeah, I mean, the Sports Commission is the little engine that could. People don't realize that the Sports Commission is a small, compact group. There's not 100 of them. There's about, I don't know, the staff when I left was around 10 or so, and what, it was so dependent upon people like Ryan and and the board that brought certain elements to the table that really helped us kind of get through. And one of those elements was, of course, was contract negotiations. We did not have lawyer on staff. So we had to lean on Ryan to help us out with a lot of things. And, I remember going through cancellation clauses with the NCAA and just like, what does that cost? And Ryan would know what the insurance, cancellation insurance would cost. And it's like, well, that's going to cost you a bundle, Chris. So you don't want to do cancellation insurance. and so you negotiate that out of the contract, or you will it down to what it could be. But the one that we kind of went back and forth on, the SEC men's basketball tournament was a real fun one to bring to St. Louis, and Ryan was instrumental. And in your connection to Duke and the other council's connection to North Carolina, that was a fun little banter. I'll always remember that call. That was fun to see those two go at it a little bit in a fun way.
Absolutely.
But the one that comes to mind is, COVID, kind of turned the world upside down a little bit when we did what was going to be the 2020 Olympic trials for gymnastics. It was the artistic, and we were at Enterprise Center, and another great partner at Enterprise Center with Chris Zimmerman and Steve Chapman and those guys and gals that made that event happen. And, we brought the event to town. It was 2018 when we announced it. And by 2019 in the fall, we'd sold it out. We were done. We were ready to go. We were ready to announce that we were finished with it. But then COVID popped, and making that event happen. COVID hit, and then we're going to delay, and just going back and forth with Ryan. So Ryan was instrumental in helping us, the Sports Commission, kind of weave our way through that and come up with a plan B. And Ryan, share what, I don't know how you even thought about this, but, it was a matter of just, getting that. Our plan B was to go to a bigger venue because it had more space in it. When COVID hit, and I know we weren't the only ones, but were there other entities that were affected that you had to spend so much of your time working? Are there other examples like that in the sports or business world where, wow, we had to really, make some adjustments on the fly? And any examples like that?
Absolutely. The reaction to COVID in the sports industry really was unlike anything I've seen before in my career here. I remember vividly, COVID became real to me the night that the NBA shut down. That is when it felt real to me. And then kind of dealing with clients, both on the, kind of organization and venue side and on the sponsor side, in terms of what does this mean for our contracts? If anyone would have told you in 2019 that they had addressed the situation of what if games are played with no fans in the stadium, they're probably lying to you. And in
Yeah.
fact, had any lawyer suggested that you deal with that before then, people would have said, we're trying to get a deal done, be practical. That's never going to come. Right. And so it was kind of a whole new world. And, I was fortunate to be able to work with a number of clients through that process, and all got to, reasonably good results. And, but it was definitely an incredibly stressful time, not just in the world, but in the sports industry in particular, because you're in the live entertainment business. And, governments and others were imposing restrictions, on how many people could be in the venue, if any, at the time. And it was really unlike anything we'd seen before, and hopefully ever will see again. So,
Yeah,
What kind of feeling is that, Brian? Ryan, I'm sorry. The unforeseen circumstances, nobody could have thought of it, and then to do the work that you do to get your clients through it as well as they can be, I mean, it's got to be rewarding.
it is, for sure. It's definitely rewarding. And again, I go back to how fortunate I am to be able to, work for organizations in both the sports industry and otherwise that mean so much to me. I see the Chris Carpenter jersey on the wall behind you, Ken. And probably my true dream would have been to pitch for the St. Louis Cardinals, but unfortunately they're not in the market, I don't think, for maybe a 70-mile-an-hour fastball. And so this is probably as close as I'm going to get, as being able to do some legal work for them. But it's really, honestly, kind of a dream come true to get to work for organizations in this industry, and in particular, the local ones that I've grown up my whole life as dear fans of.
Believe me, that's closer than a lot of people get. So talk about, if you can, kind of the breadth of teams and clients and leagues that you do represent on an ongoing basis.
Sure. So we're very fortunate. We're able to represent a number of teams and owners across professional sports. We represent 31 of the 32 NHL teams. We used to be able to say we represent them all. Seattle recently joined the league, and so we're working on getting that stat back up to 100% again. But we represent over 20 English Premier League, Liga, International League soccer teams over in Europe. I think it's 14 NFL teams, give or take. Number of MLB, NBA, and other teams as well. And then owners, sponsors, athletes. In the collegiate space, where we actively represent the NCAA, as well as various conferences and universities. And, we have a prominent Olympics practice. We represent, I think it's over 25 national governing bodies, USA Swimming, USA Basketball, USA, et cetera. So again, very fortunate to have a great team that represents a lot of clients in this space.
So Ryan, you've got, that's huge. I mean, how do you get your arms around that? I mean, do you have specialists within broadcast rights? Do you have specialists within merchandise rights? Do you have specialists within venue deals within the law firm, or just everyone just throw it out there and everyone kind of comes to the table and makes it happen? How do you build that? How's your staff built around those deals?
So it's a little bit of both, Chris, to be honest. I think, again, as part of a leading law firm with 1,200 lawyers around the world, 30 some offices, we're fortunate to have significant substantive expertise. And so we really try to bring in the particular expert for a particular matter. But we also are a relationship-based firm. And so, as I mentioned, I've been fortunate to represent a number of teams for, 25, or a number of clients for going on 20, 25 years now. Yeah. And so a lot of times the client will call me knowing that I'm not the one that's actually going to handle the matter, but they're going to trust me to bring the right subject matter expert on, and also to bring my knowledge of the organization, my knowledge of the league, my knowledge of the people at the organization together, so that we are giving good practical advice that includes sort of the business and league understanding beyond just here's what the legal advice would be.
Interesting. So any fun stories? Obviously, I know you're limited in details, but any fun stories over the years that you kind of look back on and with a smile?
Yeah, there is, and I'll stay out of the client specific work that I've done for
Yeah.
that. But one story that comes to mind, one of the great things about representing clients in this space is there tend to be some pretty fun perks that come along with it. And I think back to my son when, I don't know, he's maybe 7, 8 years old. One of his first Blues games, we were fortunate enough to be able to sit in the owner's box, and Mr. Stillman was talking to Carter between periods, and the horn goes off, third period's about to start. Tom says, Carter, great talking to you. I got to get back and watch the game. And my son, again, age 7, 8, something like that, looks at him and says, I just got to say one more thing. I really think we should go with Elliott in the net in the postseason. And I was like, Carter, you can't say that. And Tom just started laughing. He goes, no, I love a passionate fan. That's great. And he says, Carter, I'll let Hitch know you think that. So
that's funny.
Yeah, it was great.
Did they switch between periods?
They stuck with the plan. They stuck with the plan.
So Ryan, you in the evolution of the 25 years in the practice, right? So you're a lawyer, you've got these relationship building, you're doing all these great things, and then they tap you on the shoulder to become the managing partner. When you become the leader of the ship, so to speak, what does how does your culture look? How do you cultivate a great culture? How do you cultivate the up and comers as well as the seasoned veterans? And what does that office environment of Ryan Davis look like?
So I would say, so thank you for asking that. I would say it's definitely not an office environment of Ryan Davis. I would say it's an office environment of Brian Cave, Leighton Paisner. We are, as I mentioned earlier, we've recently celebrated our 150th anniversary, and we have many leaders in our office, frankly, at both the partner level, the associate level, the business services level. We're really fortunate. We have about 200 lawyers, 500 people in our St. Louis office, and there's a lot of terrific leaders in our midst. I'm fortunate to be managing partner of the office, but I am by no means the only leader in the office, for sure. In terms of the culture, you mentioned it's pretty rare, for me to have spent my entire 25-year career at one firm. I do think that's true in the industry. It's not so much true in our firm. In fact, we had a number when we combined with a firm out in Seattle a few years ago. A number of their colleagues were in our office meeting a lot of our partners, and all of them commented to me, they know that this must be a very special firm because they've met so many people that have been here 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. And I think that's really true. I think that I'm asked, whether it's as our managing partner or previously when I was recruiting committee chair or otherwise, I'm often asked what brought me to the firm, and more importantly, what keeps me at the firm. And to me, I think we have a very unique combination where we get to represent fantastic clients doing challenging work for them. So the professional side is very rewarding. But we also have a terrific culture of collegiality, supporting one another, teamwork, et cetera. I talk a lot about a culture of excellence and collegiality, and got to have both. You can't just have one or the other. And we're fortunate in that I think we do have that. I think that, personally, I can't think of a better place to work. I've been very fortunate to work there my whole career, and fortunate that I've got some years left too. So, has been a terrific 25 years, and excited about what we have in front of us. Again, thankful for the great client relationships we have, the great community in which we get to work and practice, and the great colleagues with whom I get to work every day.
Yeah, you mentioned the Blues game with your son, and I'm going to ask what the coolest events you've been to, and I know sharing those with your kids, myself as well. Those are the best, to share them with the kids. But obviously you work extremely hard, and there are at least a few perks that come with that. What are the coolest events you've been to with some of your clients?
Been very lucky to be at a number of great events. Actually, the screensaver on my phone is the 2015 national championship game. Chris mentioned Duke earlier, where my Blue Devils beat Wisconsin in a great game. I was there with both my kids, and
Nice.
that was amazing. Obviously, it's going to be tough to ever beat 2019, the Stanley Cup run. That whole playoffs was just magical. Cardinals, I think back 82, 85, 87, 2006, 2011, 2013, right? Like, what a lucky fan that I've been to be able to, cheer for teams and schools that have had the kind of success that the Cardinals, the Blues, Duke in my case have had. I have been at some games that ended poorly. I was with, Frank Viverito. I ran into down in New Orleans at Coach K's last game, which I was hopeful would not be his last game.
Right.
My son and I were at the Final Four game this year, where the first 39 and a half minutes were terrific, and then Houston made a great run against Duke, and that ended a lot differently than we wanted it to. But have been really lucky to be at a lot of great events. I was the one event I've been at where, as it was happening, I was thinking, you're going to remember being here forever. You probably know exactly where I'm going. Game 6 in 2011, the David Freese game. Had a chance to be at that game, and something I'll never forget. And a lot of the memories, I talked about being at the game with my son. A lot of the memories involve, being at games with my wife, my daughter, my son, and dear friends. And been really lucky.
Well, we're in the same boat with our kids kind of leaving the house and going their ways. How are you filling your time? I mean, is it all work, no play, or are you having any hobbies? I know it looks like Duke is just up the road playing Illinois this week. Are you going to go tomorrow and check that out? What do you do?
I'm going to miss that game, unfortunately, but that is a great question. And like you, Chris, I know I was very active in coaching both my kids in sports. Coach my daughter in soccer and softball, and my son in soccer and baseball pretty much their whole childhoods. And that's been they're both away at school. Our daughter's going to be a senior at UCLA, and our son's a sophomore at Duke. And they're both having a great time, but we miss them terribly when they're gone. And I miss coaching them and seeing them and their friends all the time. And but it's fun to watch them and their friends succeed and spread their wings. And that's been really rewarding to see them kind of take the next step in their life. But it has created a void in my schedule a little bit. I actually the timing of my taking on the managing partner role lined up pretty well with my retirement from coaching. So that was something where, I have been very fortunate to be able to represent great clients, doing some pretty good, handling some pretty good matters, while also still being really active in family life and community life and stuff like that. I've been able, in addition to the St. Louis Sports Commission, been on the board and currently I'm on the board at St. Louis Children's Hospital, and I'm involved at Greater St. Louis and others. And so find time to keep myself busy for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you've done so much. Anything left? Obviously, you said you still got some runway left in your career. Any sports-related events or anything that you haven't done yet that maybe you'd like to?
Well, I mean, we got to give them time. They're only a few years into their history, but St. Louis City SC, we've got to add a championship there to our mix here, for sure. And then I'm greedy, just more, right? More Cardinals championships, more Blues championships. In my case, more Duke championships. There's nothing more fun than watching your team go on a magical run. And again, 2019 is going to be hard to ever recreate because it was the first for all of us, and just was so magical. But willing to give it a shot and see if something can be close to that. Great.
Well, we'll keep our
Having
fingers.
having your son at Duke and winning a championship while he's there might just surpass
That would
it
be
for
great.
you.
We thought last year might be the year, but
Yeah.
couldn't finish it out. So hopefully this year we'll get it done.
Yeah, well, we'll keep our fingers crossed because I believe the first and second rounds are coming through St. Louis this
Yeah.
year at Enterprise.
Yeah.
So we might get it. We might get a taste of Duke if they get assigned to this part of the country.
There you go.
Ryan, this has been great. Unfortunately, we could go on forever. Unfortunately, we're about at time, but really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun hearing about your various exploits and experience within the sports world, again, outside of the field.
Thank you both. It's great to talk with you. I appreciate the invitation here and could talk sports all day here. So appreciate the opportunity.
Really good seeing you, Ryan.
You too. Thank you both.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. Certainly a great segment with Ryan Davis. He is really a shining star, not just in the sports world, but really St. Louis and what he's done for the city. You mentioned a number of boards that he's on. And I know, Chris, you had the good fortune to work with him closely on the sports commission.
I did. Again, the guests that we have on this show are always way too humble. We've had some great guests on, and I've got a chance to work with them. In Ryan's case, Ryan has got full-time job in one of the most prolific law firms in the world, and for him to donate his time when I was with the St. Louis Sports Commission, and he was our de facto. He was the person that helped us with our legal issues. And it's pretty complex when you're working with these rights holders, whether it's the NCAA or USA Gymnastics or USA Hockey or whatever it's going to be, and they've got their lawyers on staff, and Ryan was the person that really helped us put those things together. Now, in all my years of doing those events, and all my years of doing those contracts and going through every word, and we never had to go back and review the contract after the event and contest anything. So that's a good thing that Ryan prepared us for those events and asked all the right questions and made sure the language was correct and how we approach things and the way he did it in such a civil manner, right? So Ryan is he's kind of quietly strong. He knows a lot, and even though he could kind of bring the screws to you a little bit, never did. Just never did that. It was always a very civil conversation. Always respected all the work that he did.
Yeah, I was excited to have him on because really, in what we're trying to accomplish here is showing the people that have a big role in sports but aren't actually the players, and who would think that a lawyer would have such a big role and be so involved in things. And that's why I think it was great to get some insight from him.
Yeah. And he mentioned relationships, and relationships are key. And I remember doing, when we would do our contracts, many times Brian K. Layton and Paisner had both sides of the deal. Sometimes, like in our case with the St. Louis Sports Commission, we had to do the contract with the venue itself, with Enterprise Center. Well, he represented Enterprise Center. But he was so well thought of at Enterprise Center and with the Sports Commission that both entities, felt comfortable moving forward with him. Now, he had to have it all, have it signed off on and all those kind of things. But, those relationships that Ryan has both, here locally and nationally, internationally, I didn't realize all the international soccer that Ryan and his company that do. But, I think he's just a great person that everyone respects. I aspire to be Ryan Davis when I grow up. He's just an amazing guy.
He really is, and a good guy to boot. Really, just nice person, which is great. So, as you said, Chris, we are in full swing. It is college football now every week, and it's fasten your safety belt. It's going to be a fun season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, in that, for those in St. Louis and Kansas City, and throughout the state that are making that trek in across 70, those, you allow for extra time. There's I had a chance to drive home late last Thursday night and from the game, and you kind of got a preview of what that highway is going to feel like. Is there are certain sections of it that are wide open and beautiful and fresh concrete, and man, when they get that done, it's going to be great going back and forth. But until then, allow for extra time. Be a little bit, understand what's going on the north side of the stadium and how that's impacting the ingress and egress, even while you're in the stadium, and just have a little patience. And it's, a little bit of pain in the short term is going to be an incredible project when it's all said and done, both for the state of Missouri as far as the roads go and for Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, and really unique schedule this year. 6 home games in a row before they touch the road, and that's the reason that Coach Strink actually brought him in for a bit of an exhibition at Lindenwood earlier in the summer, just to give him a feel for what a road game looked like. But it'll be interesting, nonstop action in Columbia.
Yeah, it's the 6 home games. It's it's different, right? And so it's a lot of that's a lot on the staffs. Just from being on the inside of that. Just to see what those, we talk about the people behind the scenes, and, just from the staff and hospitality to the sponsorship crew, to the donor side, to the parking lots, to the, concessions, catering. That's a grind, a 6-week grind where you're doing something every week. And it's hats off to that crew, and you're not going to know 99% of them, but they work their tails off to put on a great show each and every Saturday.
Absolutely. Chris, always fun. Really enjoyed the conversation with Ryan, and we'll have more next week.
Great seeing you, Ken, and we'll see you next Sunday.
All right. You can catch us live Sunday mornings at 10, or find us on YouTube or any major podcast outlet. Just search Business of Sports, Playmakers Beyond the Competition, or you can always find us at luinfo.com. I want to thank Grant Salzman and, of course, Dave Green for giving us an opportunity to do the show on KLIS, and enjoying it ongoing, and more next week. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Have a great week.